Day 2 of the NFL draft is in the books. The Pittsburgh Steelers have 4 new players. No movement on the board. They stayed put. A little bit surprising if you knew what happened last year where they moved up and down the board. But 3 new Steelers today: Zach Frazier, Roman Wilson, and Payton Wilson. All 3 new Steelers that I think we all could have at least seen the interest in pre-draft. But well, let's talk about this draft, Alan. I mean, wow, if the board couldn't have fallen better for the Steelers down through the draft, first with Frazier falling to them to fill the center need, getting a quality receiver at 84, and then obviously Payton Wilson at 98.
Diamond Hands Omar never sells. He just holds. He sits there and the draft board just falls right to him. It's happened over and over again. It's uncanny. He's not panicked. You know, it's funny because a lot of people have said that Omar Khan is aggressive. They've called him that. And he said, I think it was at the owners' meetings, he said, I actually think I'm patient. And that was something that seemed like, I was like, okay, I can kind of see what he's saying. In the draft, Omar is patient. Like, he really let the board come to him, and I think he played it very, very well. I believe that every player he has drafted, I had mocked at a higher slot to this point. Except for Zach Frazier, who I had mocked going to the Steelers at 51. And so there's like they're getting incredible value up and down this draft, especially here in day 2, and they navigated their needs so well. I mean, they had to come out of this day with a center. They had to come out of this day with a wide receiver. They got 2 guys that I thought it was questionable whether either one of them would be available at 51. They end up getting them back to back, and then, oh, by the way, one of the top linebackers in the class on top of that. An incredible job by Omar Khan, and you know, just. I mean, I think some of it has to be just considered fortune, but I'm not going to say it's all luck. Like, they did not panic. They did not make a move that they didn't have to make to go up the board and pay some draft capital to get the guys that were going to follow them anyway, and I think that's to their credit.
Second straight year this is happening, right? I mean, he did last year, too, where trade up for Broderick Jones.
He did trade up for Broderick Jones last year, but it seemed like they needed to do that. Like, the Jets were going to take Broderick Jones.
And he was patient enough to where it only cost him a 4th-round pick.
And it's all about the knowledge, right? He seemed to know that he needed to pay to go up to get Broderick Jones. And this year he has seemed to know that he did not need to move from where he was and that his guys were going to fall to him, and they have.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, sure, you know, Joey Porter Jr. fell to him at 32. Keanu Benton fell to him at 49. You know, I mean, Darnell Washington trading back. I mean, we have so many examples of this where they have guys they really like and just snap them up like that. I think the other big thing is not as concerned, it seems, about medicals. You know, Fautanu had the knee. Frazier obviously broke his leg. Wilson just has an absolute laundry list. Ian Rappaport reported that he actually doesn't even have one ACL in one of his legs. So that's kind of, you know, something that they are throwing to the side. Corey Trice, Darnell Washington, also examples of that last year.
Yeah, I wrote that story today. I think that's a big part of this, is that they don't seem to be afraid of injury concerns, really, at least not compared to the way the rest of the league is. I mean, we'll see if that plays out for them long term. I mean, that's kind of a thing where it probably will take a couple of years to really objectively evaluate whether that's been a good decision or a bad one. But they're getting good players right now for good draft positions, so it's, you know, the first part of it's going quite nicely.
Yeah, it is. And listen, I think, you know, the offensive line is the biggest story of this draft. This is set now. You know, they have 5 guys. I think that the #1 goal on all 5 of those guys' mind is to put the other guy into the dirt on any given down. I mean, I really do believe that. You know, Fautanu, Jones, Sayamalo, Daniels, Frazier is a really good 5. This thing, you know, offensive line in terms of actual need for a starter, if they can get Daniels extended beyond this year, is not going to have to be touched for a while. And they're really going to have a nice
2 more years of Sayamalo?
They have 2 more years of Sayamalo. So, you know, that's going to be a group that's going to be able to grow together. It's going to be able, you know, to have 2 veterans, too. I think having 2 vets right there at both guard spots will help those young guys kind of get into the feel of it. I love the Frazier pick, obviously, at 51. I think you can argue he's the best center in the class in terms of just plug-and-play. I think
someone has on this channel argued that he's the best center in the class, actually.
Yeah, I do. I still believe that Grant Barton is the best center in the class personally. But if you are wanting a plug-and-play, easiest projection, I understand the Frazier love. And it makes so much sense. You know, this guy's a top 35 player in the class. He's not the athlete of the other 2, but he's still a pretty solid athlete, can do everything that they're going to ask him to do. I'll tell you what, I don't know, and I saw, kind of looking at this from a macro view, and I asked Arthur Smith about this, is there a better group of pullers in the NFL on the offensive line? If they want to run counter, crack toss, power, trap, crunch, they can run all of this stuff. I know that's not traditionally in Arthur Smith's DNA, but I think it's going to have to be, because this group is going to get on the move. And if I were
I thought Arthur Smith was very interesting today, talking about how he wants to evolve, and like he doesn't want to just be the same playbook that he's had for the last 4 years. He wants to find new things, and I think sometimes in Atlanta, like when you look at this offense, sometimes that tendency got him into a little bit of trouble. I think maybe he would have been better off it sometimes just playing the hits, right? Like you go see Bruce Springsteen, you don't want to hear the new album, right? Like you want to go hear Jungle Land and Thunder Road, okay? But like I think that he needs to find that mix. But the difference here is I think he has a group of guys that is good at different stuff than what he's done before. So like if he can call the plays the Steelers are already good at, and he can get the Steelers up to speed on his plays, I think it could be a very nice combination.
Yeah, and again, I think this is a set offensive line. I think, going to Roman Wilson, I think this is still an area of concern to me. I like Roman Wilson, the player, and I think he's the perfect 3, but I think they need a 2. I really do. I think they need a vet in this room that really is a big outside guy, whether that comes from free agency or a trade. We've talked about Cortland Sutton. We've talked about, maybe 119 gets moved for Cortland Sutton. I mean, that could definitely happen. Maybe a 25 pick gets traded later this summer for him. I don't know. We'll see. We heard that they were in on Deebo Samuel, weren't willing to kind of go up. So they're clearly in this market of wanting a vet. I think the vet is going to come at some point. I think the plan was always a vet and draft someone. But I think, going to Roman Wilson, I think this is a guy that is perfect for the culture shift that they want to put in. And, Arthur Smith kind of essentially detailing out why Deontay Johnson was traded, which, when you talk about Deontay Johnson with the fumble effort last year and some of the...
And kind of a shot across the bow with George Pickens, too, who had some blocking effort questions this year. And, look, you actually brought this up today as we were walking around the campus here at the South Side, and that the Steelers have drafted a lot of guys where it's like in his last 2 classes, super high character. Like they're all good guys to talk to. They're all smart and intelligent, and like it seems like a pretty strong cultural shift here. And then just talking to these guys today, and you said they're very open. These are players that you could see the interest in. Well, I'll tell you what, these are players that we saw the interest in. You talked to Roman Wilson at the Senior Bowl. I talked to Payton Wilson at the Senior Bowl. You talked to Troy Fautanu at the Combine. We both have had Zach Frazier high on our level of interest. Mike Asti from our WVSN site helped us out with Zach Frazier at the Combine. But, I mean, these were all guys that were on our list, guys that we needed to hit. And we've talked to them, and they're great guys. Like, I mean, this is quality really people. Payton Wilson was a captain. Zach Frazier was a captain. You could see both of them being captains in the NFL. You could see Troy Fautanu. He wasn't, designated a captain, but he was one of the leaders of that Washington team that went to, the college football playoff. And so there's... this is high character group, and the selflessness and the effort of getting winners. You got a player from Michigan, you got a player from Washington. These are teams.
2 Georgia Bulldogs last year.
Yeah, these are guys playing big time college football games. They understand what it takes to win. I think you are seeing a cultural shift in this team as well.
Yeah, and I think Roman Wilson's very indicative of that. The no block, no rock, right?
Dude, he's like mini Hines Ward. Like, that's really what I think he is.
He's an interesting player.
He's not as big as Hines Ward, but he's every bit as tough. He's not a very refined route runner. He has work to do at the NFL level. But, man, like, he's just the kind of player that you want to root for. Like, he has effort and energy in spades. And I think there's, talent there that he could be developed more than what he showed on tape at Michigan.
Yeah, and I do think, what we saw at the Senior Bowl was, while he's not a refined route runner, the traits are there. Like, the quickness is...
He cooked Quinion Mitchell.
And it's because of the quickness. I think the routes aren't there, but the release package is already really good. And I think he's obviously extremely fast. 4.39, and he looks every bit of it on tape. He just darts in the middle of the field. I think the other thing is, most of his production came from in between the numbers. He was a chain mover. I think this team really needed a guy that can be a chain mover, because George Pickens is a real big play threat. That's the guy that everyone's going to take away. Well, who's going to eat underneath? Roman Wilson's going to get a lot of work there. I think it's what they wanted Allen Robinson to be last year, was this chain mover underneath. in the middle of the field. I think that's what Roman Wilson's going to be able to do for this team, and he can be a vertical threat too on those play action shots. Played a lot of condensed set stuff too in terms of what Arthur Smith likes to do, running those condensed sets, blocking. That's going to be really big for him. He's a little raw. Again, I think he's a 3 right now. I don't think I would put him as the 2. Ideally, I think you would rather have a vet there. But
I think you would like another deeper threat.
Yeah.
Like if you could get George Pickens and a Cortland Sutton and put them on the outside and let them run deep routes, and then you can have Wilson and Pat Freiermuth taking up a lot of space on the inside. I think that's a pretty solid passing attack. And, the big picture for me is you can really see just the thought process in all of this. You see the plan coming together, right? The hiring of Arthur Smith, the 2-year dedication to the offensive line in that Andy Weidel, Philadelphia Eagles mold. Like, you can see the kind of team they want to be. And I understand that, like, there are fans out there that were watching the team go offensive line, and look at this wide receivers and go, like, who are we going to throw the ball to? Like, what, And they don't care. They don't want to throw the ball. They want to run the ball. The Arthur Smith offense in Tennessee in 2020 was 4th in scoring and 28th in passing. Like, that is the plan here. And it's not because of Arthur Smith. It's because that's what the Steelers want to be, and they can be that. When you put that with a suffocating defense, look, I don't think that will make them a Super Bowl contender, not in a conference with Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. But until you get that quarterback, it is going to make you be the best team that you can be. And look at the Eagles, right? When they got Jalen Hurts, they didn't ask him to do anything. That is a very good way to develop a quarterback. So the Steelers are going to have Russell Wilson forever. Maybe they can develop Justin Fields into something. Maybe they can't. We'll see. But I think they're trying to set up a good environment for this offense that they can win without great quarterback play. And then if they can find that, great. Then you really are there in terms of contending.
Yeah, and I do think that they do want to pass it, but what they want to do is get explosives. And that's the big thing, right? So you want Pickens, obviously, there because he's just the ultimate explosiveness. I think, Wilson can be that over the middle, can be the chain mover when they need to. I think what Wilson does, as long as they add a third guy, and I think that third guy is coming, I don't think it's going to be a Tyler Boyd because I think we probably would agree Wilson's the slot with the
right, so you want an outside guy.
So you want an outside
guy.
If
you're talking about a free agent, I'd say more DJ Chark.
Yeah, okay. Or, I don't know, Michael Thomas, maybe, or someone
OBJ?
like that. Yeah, OBJ. I mean, someone like that, right?
Michael Thomas, I think, is probably
slottier.
I think OBJ would be a pretty good fit.
I could see it in terms of just the fit, but he probably will want too much. But, Sutton makes a lot of sense. We'll kind of see what other trade stuff materializes. I imagine that is coming at some point. I do think the vet receiver is coming. I think they want a vet receiver. I think
there's too much smoke for there not to be something there.
I think it's pretty clear that their plan was always center in round 2, wide receiver in round 3, but they wanted to get a vet too on top of the drafted guy. So I think the plan was always that 2 receivers because they were going to draft a receiver even if Deontay Johnson was still around. So, the 2 receivers are probably coming. Roman Wilson is one of those receivers. So we'll see where the passing attack kind of stands. I think they're just missing that outside piece. And the reason why they're going to need that outside piece is when the team does get into those kind of shootouts with, the Bills or, the Chiefs or whoever, they're going to need to be able to pass the ball a little bit when they're down and in 11 personnel. They still need that mode. And so they'll be able to do that if they can do that. But, Wilson, I think adds an explosive element from the slot. I also think, they have a guy that they can just take 2 or 3 shots to a game in Calvin Austin if they want to hit him over the top. I think they have a nice array of what Arthur Smith likes.
They have a good backup in Van Jefferson. So, I think they have depth. I just think they need that one other veteran guy, that one more piece. And, hey, or maybe they just go back to the well. I mean, look, Johnny Wilson's still there. Maybe they'll go back to it in the 4th round. Yeah. We've got a lot to think about tomorrow. We've got another day of coverage here. So we'll be back on this channel tomorrow after the 3rd round concludes. Before that, we will have Zach Frazier, who's coming to the facility tomorrow at 11:30 before the draft. So we'll have his video, and then us back here. Maybe it'll be daylight this time. That'd be nice. And not 2 in the morning. And then we'll wrap things up. Anything else from today?
Just touching on Payton Wilson a little bit. I think, just talking about that guy. The talent he is, the athletic talent that they have there.
We talked about the injuries, obviously, but like the player, special.
Yeah, I mean, the player, has some questions in terms of the positionlessness of what he was in college. I do think the way NC State used him a little bit was very reminiscent of how Clemson used Isaiah Simmons as that blitzer that can come off the edge, a guy that spot drops in zone. He's a great blitzer, by the way, and a great spot dropper in zone, which is why I think you kind of hone him in there first. And, you know, you don't kind of expand the menu, even though he has this great athletic talent and sideline to sideline range. You know, you don't ask him to be the Tampa 2 pull runner yet. You don't ask him to kind of take on these exotic
he could
roles.
do that one. I think the man-to-man coverage against the flexed out tight end is the part where
this is really the exciting part,
you
right?
know, maybe, yeah.
I think that's the exciting part of the upside of him.
Right. That could be coming.
Right. Like, look who is in the division with David Njoku and Mark Andrews. I mean, Isaiah likely even has to be in there too, right? What, you know, Payton Wilson could be at his height if he reaches the ceiling. It could be that big tight end neutralizer, and it would be such a massive boon, because you talk about, you know, linebackers that can be that, you know, the Fred Warners of the world that are such special athletes. They really change what you can do on the back half of the defense. And that, you know, there was a question today of how he kind of made Minka better. I think that's a down the road question if he can reach his ceiling. But if you have Patrick Queen and Payton Wilson at his ceiling in the middle, the things you could do with Minka Fitzpatrick immediately becomes exponential. And the difference between the, you know, say the 49ers with Warner and Greenlaw up there is they don't have a Minka back there. And Talanoa Hufanga is a good player, and look what he did behind that group.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great pickup. We said that they were going to go linebacker. I didn't think they were going to get that one. Another great pull for this team. More to come tomorrow. They got a pick in the 4th round at 119. That should be coming probably, I'd say, before 1 p.m. And then 2 more in the 6th round. So we'll have all that wrapped up here tomorrow.
We will. Make sure to check out more stuff on SteelersNow.com.
You could as much content as there possibly can be.
We wrote like 40 stories.
SteelersNow.com.
I'm pretty sure we wrote like 40 stories yesterday, so make sure to check all of those out. You can find me on Twitter at Farabaugh. You can find him at @Saunders_PGH. Make sure to watch more here on the Steelers Now channel. We're having more videos coming out, of course, over the weekend. Make sure to hit the notification bell, subscribe, like. Thanks for watching.